Hello and welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining the second part of our five-part series. This session is called Help, I'm Competing Against AI, Human versus Artificial Intelligence in Language Teaching. I know some of you have probably attended some of my previous webinars about AI. A lot of what we will cover today will take that to the next level. We'll also have a lot of new viewers today, and I'm sure to recap the things that we covered in the previous webinars. But one thing I can guarantee that this session will blow your mind and also will probably inspire you about the things you can do with AI to make yourself both more effective, efficient, and also as a teacher, and also help you have more fun in the process. So one promise I can give you is that you will gain a lot in the next 50 minutes. First, you will learn how to escape the trap of teacher burnout with the help of AI. Second, you'll learn how to avoid becoming a replaceable commodity in the age of AI. Third, you learn how to become an invaluable, respected, and irreplaceable educator who is impossible to automate with AI. And fourth, you learn how to tame AI to supercharge your impact and also your fulfillment and sense of enjoyment with the help of AI. If you're wondering who am I to begin with to promise all these lofty things in the first place, here's a bit of a background of where I come from. Before Pearson, I taught ESL in New York City. And one thing that I did a lot of in my teaching career is I always experimented with a bunch of different techniques and methodologies and tools, low-tech tools, high-tech tools. At some point, I learned how to create my own digital tools with web and websites. And I got so fast and efficient with them that while my students were doing one activity, let's say for 10 minutes, I was able to generate or create a custom new website or web page for the next activity. So today you'll see how AI can help you do that without necessarily being very technical. And one highlight of my teaching career is that my personal record is having taught 100 lessons in just the course of 2 weeks, where I was substituting for another teacher and I taught 6 lessons per day from my schedule and 4 lessons per day from another teacher's schedule, 5 days a week for 2 weeks straight. So that experience taught me a lot about how quickly a teacher is capable of creating quality lesson plans and materials, because to be able to teach 10 lessons a day for 10 days, I only had 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in between the two schedules to be able to prepare the lessons for the rest of the day. So what I want to show you today is that AI could be that superpower so that you can be very effective as a teacher, have fun, create cool activities, but also be very efficient and not spend a lot of time preparing lesson plans and materials, because a lot of teachers don't actually get paid for planning lessons. They only get paid for teaching. At least that was the case in my career. So second, at Pearson right now, I'm leading what I think is the coolest innovation team in the English language learning division, and probably Pearson as a company as a whole. My team is called ELL Accelerator, and that is like an internal super secret innovation lab where we build prototypes, test new concepts, and experiment with technologies such as AI, virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality, and we build really, really cool stuff that will, some of which becomes the roadmap for new products that we launch. Just to give you a couple of examples, last month, Pearson launched the digital language tutor, which uses highly realistic AI avatars to help employees in the workplace to practice English and work related scenarios. My team started that project a couple of years ago, so it's nice to see it hit the market this year. Also, my team, you see that image on the right, has been working on multiplayer virtual reality metaverse style experiences where learners can practice English with either AI avatars in virtual reality or with other learners who join in multiplayer world. And you can find some of these features are already available on the Mondly VR app. If you go to MetaQuest store and look for Mondly VR or Mondly practice languages, you will find some of those features there. And my team always works on some of the other cool things, such as lesson tools for teachers or AI assessment tools for online tutoring and so on. So I hope that gives you kind of the confidence that I have a couple of useful, interesting things to share on this topic. And what I'll show you today is going to be both philosophical in nature, but also very practical and hands-on in nature. So let's keep going. Actually, I forgot one little thing that I mention in every single webinar that I give is that the way that I talk about myself is I identify as an undercover teacher. Is that passion for teaching and learning that I had in the classroom? I still have it, and I just basically get to work with bigger teams and cooler technologies. But I always have the front, kind of like in mind the aspect of how do we help teachers become more awesome at what they do and so that learners enjoy their lessons more. So let's dive in. So first, I'm going to ask you some couple of weird questions as I like to start webinars with. So first, have you ever visited the same place over and over again, maybe using a GPS navigation on your phone or in your car, yet failed to find your way around without the GPS, despite having traveled the same route dozens of times? Or maybe you've been using GPS for the same exact commute over and over and over again, and you have almost this sense of dread or fear that if you turned it off, then you would get lost, even though you drove that route many, many times. So I don't know. Maybe you can paste your response in the chat, yes or no. I see some people say nope. I see some people say absolutely yes. I'm probably in the yes category. So second question that I have here is, have you ever used a calculator to do very basic calculations, such as adding, let's say, 15, 18, or 20% tip to your total check, knowing well that you could actually easily add the same exact numbers up in your head, but for some reason, just this imagined or anticipated pain of calculating it in your head kind of prevented you from doing it? Or maybe you felt like, just in case, let me use the calculator anyway. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that type of experience. At least it happens to me every time. So my wife and I, we have kind of like a ritual that every Friday we go out somewhere, and every time I use a calculator, even though the math that I'm doing there is pretty pathetic in nature. So the reason I'm asking you all these questions is that if you answered yes to both of them or one of them, congratulations. You're just like any other human being, and you are also a victim of what is called cognitive offloading. So we're going to talk about this concept of cognitive offloading because it's very relevant to the age of AI. So let's dive into that. So what is cognitive offloading, and what are the benefits of cognitive offloading, and what are the side effects of cognitive offloading? So cognitive offloading is pretty much deciding to delegate some difficult cognitive or mental tasks to AI or to tools like calculators or GPS to make your life easier. But unfortunately, this also kind of makes you dumber over time. So for example, I found some research, and when I say it means I used some of the AI tools such as Perplexity AI capabilities to basically find me some latest papers on the topic of cognitive offloading and give me the summary of like what are the benefits and what are the side effects. Because let's admit it, we're all busy, so who has time to read, boring 40-page PDF scientific papers in preparation for the webinar? So I didn't have that time. So I used perplexity.ai to do it. So let's dive in on what Perplexity summarizes. And that's maybe another example of offloading something. And maybe over time, I'll become a much worse researcher. But according to those papers, right? So all joking aside, the benefits of cognitive offloading are numerous, right? So these are the three most, common ones. So first of all, using AI tools such as GPS or calculator, or using AI to do this research for me, gives you, a boost of brain power for your brain, right? So because you can research more and learn more much more quickly, you also become more efficient, and it also allows non-experts to become experts, right? So I don't need to be a PhD scientist doing desk research to be able to get up to speed on like the latest state of the art, right? So I think those benefits are very clear. However, there are also like side effects, right, or drawbacks of doing cognitive offloading. And according to those papers, they found is that over time, your critical thinking skills actually start disappearing if you rely on AI tools too much, right? Also, you may get this, concept what's called illusion of learning, where you recognize seeing a lot of things a lot, and you feel that like, oh, I already know all of this, or already learned all of this. But in fact, what this creates is more of a memory loss. So you actually don't retain anything, and what you think you can recall, you actually can't without it, and that basically causes you to forget things very quickly, right? Because as we all know, real learning is very effortful and has to be challenging to stick. So if you remove that pain and effort, you actually don't learn and retain much in the longer term. And also, it's interesting to see that people that have been using things like ChatGPT for brainstorming and creative idea generation, uh, that creativity as a skill also starts atrophying in the process, right? So basically, there's benefits, there's side effects. So let's get to the point of like, okay, now what? What do we do? So one thing I can tell you is that like either extreme is bad for you, because if you're not using any AI as a teacher, you're going to become pretty useless over time, because you will be very slow, you'll be exhausted, you'll be burning out, and you will have no time to try anything new in the classroom, because all of your time will be spent on doing all of the work that you're already doing. And later, we're going to take a look at how much language teachers actually do, and they do quite a lot. Uh, on the opposite extreme, if you are using AI too much, that can make you useless, because you are becoming so dependent and lazy that your own teaching skills actually atrophy over time, and then you become useless without these tools, right? So I think it's pretty obvious that like neither of these extremes is particularly useful. So what do we do about it? So let's take a look at how we can escape the trap of overwhelm and how we learn the art of picking the right battles. So teachers do a lot. So I did another quick research using Perplexity, and also using Claude to create this visualization. And what I basically asked Perplexity is to analyze latest publications, government publications, blogs, and papers, to basically try to calculate how many hours English teachers spend on different activities. And there were different studies, some English teachers, some not English teachers, but generally it's roughly within these kind of like numbers, right? Is that 50% of teachers' time is spent on direct instruction, in some countries less, in some countries more. And then the rest of the time is spent on things like preparing lessons, adapting or creating materials, grading papers, providing feedback, and doing a bunch of administrative tasks and so on, right? So teachers do quite a lot. That's the point. And then not everything that teachers do is paid, right? Because many teachers only get paid for the hours they spend teaching, and rarely for the time they spend doing these other things, right? So that's why I think AI would be very interesting, because it can help you reduce the unpaid time by a lot. So let's take a look at a couple of ways of looking at uh, where the teacher's time is the most valuable. So basically, I created a simple graph, right? So I took the same tasks from all of these papers and tried to plot them on this kind of like two axes, right? So frequency of like how often does a teacher do it, and importance. And by importance here, I mean of like this, is this really an important task to create an impact on the learners, right? Because some things are boring but necessary, some are really useful. So I think high impact tasks, right, are the ones that occur very frequently and the ones that are very important for learning. So I would place maybe tasks like this into this category, right? So facilitating lessons, obviously, creating and adapting materials, in classroom assessments such as quizzes or exit tickets and so on, or monitoring, or doing the test teach test approach in the classroom, providing feedback to students in class and out of class, building rapport with students, building connection with your students, getting to know them, and motivating students. So I would probably say that based on my experience, these are the tasks that I, as a teacher, did pretty frequently, and I believe that these are the tasks that are super important for learning. So I call these high impact tasks. Then you have kind of like admin tasks, right? So tasks that you do pretty frequently, but they might not be as important for actual learning, right? So for example, taking attendance, you do every single time, and it's annoying. Grading assignments, again, is another task you do pretty frequently, but not very important unless you're providing a lot of useful feedback. So student communications, parent communications, creating lesson plans. In my experience, like creating lesson plans is like a superficial activity because in some schools, in some programs where I taught, I was supposed to create this like generic lesson plans, even though I actually never actually followed the plan exactly, but it was more like a bureaucratic task that I had to do, which felt like I was wasting my time doing it. Then there's this medium impact tasks, the tasks that are important for learning, but they're not as frequent. So, for example, proctoring placement tests, diagnostic tests, midterm tests, achievement tests, end of term tests, all of this kind of like proctoring tests that teachers do in the classroom, I think are important, but they're not as frequent as, let's say, facilitating daily lessons. Creating a syllabus probably is a thing that you do once per semester or once per term, and then advising and mentoring. I think it occurs maybe on an ad hoc basis. And then there's this like boring but necessary activities such as attending staff meetings or attending some training workshops and or creating and filing some kind of report in your program. So basically that's how I see this kind of task. So I don't know, maybe a quick question in the chat, like does that represent kind of like your typical workload of the type of task that you do as a teacher? And do you maybe have other tasks that you do in addition to them? Or do you strongly disagree maybe with where certain tasks would fall and maybe you would move them from left to right or up or down? Um, um, so I'll just take a look at the chat very quick. Yep. So it seems that pretty familiar, similar. Um, yeah, I think some people are saying that lesson planning is high impact. I'd probably agree, depending on like maybe whether you're doing real lesson planning versus bureaucratic lesson planning, kind of like, hey, submit your lesson plan just to check a box versus like being really thoughtful about all of the activities that you create. Okay, so where am I going with this? So I'm going here is that I believe that tasks that are on the left side, right? Tasks that are less important for learning. I think these are the tasks that AI can help us automate. And we should probably try to automate these tasks as soon as possible because spending time here takes away our energy and creativity and our time for doing more of a high impact tasks on the right. And I believe that tasks on the right should never be automated and with AI, but they could be easily augmented by AI. And we as teachers can basically do all of these activities much better or with much more impact using AI. So later in this session, I'll show you how to do both. And I'll give you some really cool examples of how to save time by automating some of the tasks that you might consider lower value tasks, and then how you could augment yourself and focus on using AI for augmenting your capability with AI. So I have a couple of questions. So maybe in the chat, if you could guys answer maybe the first questions first is, so which of these tasks on the left do you think would be impossible for AI to do well now or in the future or ever? So maybe like, do any of these tasks you believe like AI will never be capable of doing very, very well? So I see some people saying gradings and building rapport, taking attendance, attending meetings. You'd be surprised. We some teams at Pearson actually use AI clone avatars to jokingly send AI clones to meetings because we try to reduce the number of meetings we attend. So I think, but maybe in-person meetings will probably be difficult to do without robots. So let's wait for Elon Musk to give us affordable robots very soon to send to staff meetings. Okay, motivating students. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I think feedback, building rapport, talking to parents, and so on. A lot of interesting ideas. So maybe let's do the same for question number two. So question number two is, which of these tasks do you as a teacher enjoy doing so much that you wish AI never learned to do them, right? So if AI was actually capable to do the task well, which of them would you hate for AI to automate that, and which of them you would love to continue doing yourself as a teacher? Rapport, providing feedback, mentoring, motivating, creating. Okay, some interesting thoughts in the chat. Yeah. So yeah, thanks guys for sharing. Right. So the reason I'm asking you this question, right, is because I think ultimately there are two ways you can look at the topic of AI and automation. On the one hand, is you can see the future of teaching based on what AI is capable of, and that's fine. But I think the most important question that you have control over is your own autonomy and agency to decide which of these tasks you want to never let AI automate, and which of these tasks you want to adopt AI tools for making yourself even more awesome. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples here. So another way to look at this, right, is let's take those tasks that we identified as high value, those that are frequent, and the ones that are important, and let's plot them on yet another set of axes here, right? And this will be based on expertise versus enjoyment. So by expertise, I mean two types of expertise, right? So the highest type of expertise is very contextual in nature, right? So for example, you as an English teacher, you have expertise of your local community, your students in your classroom that you actually know by name and their needs and local standards. And that's the kind of expertise that AI will never have, right? Because it doesn't know your students by name. So ChatGPT has a lot of like generic capabilities and generic intelligence, but it does not know the names of your students or what they asked you the week ago, or what did what like internal inside jokes you have in your classroom going on. So I mean that type of expertise, right? Expertise that's very contextual, right? Not theoretical. And then on the bottom, right, you have more of a theoretical or very general or generic expertise, right? So like maybe creating a syllabus that requires just like knowing how to do it. And many syllabi are quite generic in nature because you haven't actually met your students when you're creating it, right? And then enjoyment, I think, is pretty straightforward, right? So like all the way on the left, you have like I hate doing this, and then on the right, you have like I love doing this, right? And what I want to show you is how I would place certain high value activities for me subjectively, and the way that you would do it would probably be different, and which is fine, right? Because we are going to talk about making our own individual conscious decisions about the use of AI. So facilitating lesson activities. I think that's the thing that requires both contextual expertise and also for me is extremely enjoyable. When I taught ESL, I loved doing in class activity, right? I just like the act of teaching itself, right? Also, creating and adapting materials was pretty enjoyable. Informal classroom assessments like quizzes and Kahoots and all this kind of things that we did was pretty fun. Motivating students, providing feedback, building rapport, advising, mentoring. So here's how I would basically place those tasks for me personally, based on my perception of whether they require contextual expertise versus generic expertise, and whether I hate doing this type of things or love doing those kind of things, right? So the big idea here is that I believe that we as teachers should use AI to augment our craft of teaching to become even more awesome at these things that we enjoy and that require local contextual expertise. The things that don't require contextual expertise and things that we don't particularly enjoy, I think we should use the type of AI that helps us automate the monotony and drudgery of those tasks so that we don't spend a lot of time doing them, right? So I think the heuristic or the rule of thumb of like automate what you hate doing and that's not really important and that ChatGPT can do, and then don't automate the things that you really enjoy doing and that are high impact and that require your actual human knowledge of certain things in the context where you teach, right? So let's take a look at a couple of other heuristics here. So one good question to ask yourself is, what skills are you busy getting better at? Are you getting better at low value skills, or are you getting better at high value skills? So here's a useful, interesting analogy. So I like cycling, and I like both mountain bikes and road bikes and gravel bikes. So like I'm a big bike nerd. So I'm going to use a bike analogy here. So on the one hand, if you like bikes, right, you may prefer things like downhill mountain biking, right? So there, the art of if you spend a lot of time doing downhill mountain biking, you are developing a very specific set of skills, right? So like how you descend a mountain on a mountain bike, and you do all this like crazy jumps and so on, are very different skills from, let's say, road cycling on, let's say, Tour de France, where there's a lot of climbing stages and you actually have to ascend and go uphill, and you compete based on that. And if you spend a lot of time doing that kind of cycling, the type of skills and muscles that you develop are very, very different, if not opposite, from the other kind of cycling. So where am I going with this? Is I want you to think of teaching and all these different tasks that you do in teaching as skills that you are getting better at, right? So the more you do those things, the better you get at those things. And I want you to be very thoughtful individually to decide which of these things or which of these skills do I actually want to be getting better at, and which of these skills do I not care about getting better at. So if you're just wondering, these images were also generated, of course, with AI, and I used a Google Imagen 3 model for them, just in case. So, what kind of teacher do you want to become? And let's talk about the economics of teaching. So, maybe a warning that this section might be very opinionated and quite strong. And I usually like to test the audience with some very divisive kind of like thinking to see where you guys stand. So there's actually two possible futures, right? So for yourself, because if you are considering adopting AI for as an English teacher, as a languages teacher, you have two possible futures, right? You can basically say, what am I going to automate? Am I going to automate difficult tasks, or am I going to automate easy tasks? And I have an opinion about this. So I believe that if you are automating difficult tasks, um, you will turn into somewhat of a teacher as a lesson facilitator. But what do I mean by this? Is that if AI or publisher provides most all the materials for you, quizzes for you, generates feedback, creates all the grades for you, then the only thing that you do is just pretty much like mediating the lessons with everything provided, right? You're not doing any much more thinking because all these other difficult areas are done for you. If, on the other hand, you choose to automate the easy tasks, then you become more of a teacher as a learning engineer. So this means that as a teacher, you, besides facilitating, you also craft your own custom materials and content, and you create your own tools and quizzes, and you use AI to do those kind of things, right? And then you, as a teacher, then use AI to personalize every single aspect of learning and assessment, not just the way that you facilitate instruction, but also every single tool and bit of content and assessment that you generate with those tools, right? So basically, you are not automating difficult tasks. You're automating easy tasks, but you're creating space and time for yourself to do the hard tasks by augmenting yourself, right? So going back to the automating difficult tasks, right? I think that road leads to deprofessionalization of teachers, right? Because if AI automates a lot of your teaching tasks, then you're just basically a body in a classroom facilitating instruction. And I think that leads to the ultimate deprofessionalization of teachers, right? Where you as an individual don't actually have a lot of valuable monetizable skills that schools or districts would be willing to pay a lot of money for, right? So I basically believe that that's a very dangerous path to automate a lot of teaching tasks because you become more of like a replaceable body in a classroom that can facilitate learning but cannot do much else, right? If, on the other hand, you choose the other path, I believe that path leads to the opposite, which is professionalization of teachers, right? Because you become not just a facilitator, but you become also a teacher as a craftsman, right? So, craftsperson who is highly skilled, very technical, very creative, and who learned how to use a lot of different AI tools to create materials, customize instructions, create their own curriculum. And I believe that leads to better paid positions and possessing, because you in the marketplace would possess very rare and irreplaceable skills that would be impossible to automate or replace with just another body in the classroom, right? So I believe that the first path leads to the bottom, just like we looked at downhill cycling. And I believe that the second path is a race to the top, where you become more and more skillful and technical and creative with the help of AI. So that's where I stand on this. Maybe interesting to hear any of your thoughts, if that rings the bell or you disagree or agree. But I guess maybe from the way that I presented them, you can probably tell that I'm individually, personally, supportive more of the second path, and I think it's more exciting to look at kind of like how you can become a super user of all of these tools to become like a super powered English teacher. So let's take a look at a couple of more things here. I think the takeaway here is number one: don't glamorize doing manual, low value tasks. Automate these tasks and don't feel sorry about them. Like, for example, grading quizzes takes a lot of time. I'll give you one example. It didn't actually use AI, but it used technology. So every month or every couple of months in one of the programs that where I used to teach, we had to do this like achievement tests. And achievement tests were based on Pearson textbooks, and they were mostly multiple choice tests or fill in the blank tests, like the typical quiz style tests based on the couple of units that we covered previously. And it would take me a lot of time to print those tests. Then students would do them on paper, circling, filling them in. And then I would take them home and I would spend hours just checking, like, okay, is this like A correct, C incorrect, and that kind of stuff. So what I ended up doing is I ended up digitizing all of those achievement tests using a tool called Socrative. Socrative is, similar to those kind of like quizzes and Kahoots and so on. And I basically digitized every single achievement test, and it took me a lot of time to do so. But once I did it, all of my students started doing achievement tests using their mobile device. So when we had an achievement test, they would scan a QR code with the achievement test already there. They would complete it, and they would automatically get the score, and I don't need to grade manually every single achievement test anymore, right? So by investing a lot of time, a little bit more on time upfront, I then save, I don't know, hundreds of hours over the course of the years that I taught on not needing to do this like manual grading of these quizzes, right? So that's an example of like not glamorizing like the being busy doing low value tasks and the importance of automating them. So second takeaway is don't offload creative high value tasks. Instead, augment yourself with AI. So I'll give you a lot of examples today of how you can take ownership of making sure that you still own this type of creative, difficult, technical tasks, and where AI can help you, but it will never replace you, or at least it shouldn't. So a couple of caveats. I'm not sure if you guys saw this meme. I'm a big kind of meme person and X slash Twitter person, and I always like this like punchy, opinionated statements that you can always find on the social media platform. So Joanna had this interesting post. I don't know if you guys have seen this before. It's quite old, but I love it. Right. So she was basically complaining about the impact of AI and what we end up offloading to it. Right. So she basically says, you know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. So I think that really resonates with me. And what I did is I created a fake Twitter tweet post, repurposing it for the English teachers here. So my post basically says, you know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to grade my papers and generate lesson plans so that I can create fun activities, not for AI to create fun activities so that I can do my lesson plans and grade papers. So that's my kind of like uh, repurposing of this X. But I was wondering if you guys have your own opinion about what you wish AI did for you, and what do you wish AI like never do for you. So what I created here is this medlib, and I would like you to maybe take a few seconds to share this in the chat. So the formula is pretty simple, and it basically says, I want AI to do task X so that I can do task Y, not for AI to do task Y so that I can do task X. I'm pretty sure you've done similar activities with your students, but maybe let's take a stab at seeing like what you would want AI to do for you versus what do you not want AI to do for you. Very cool. Some people say that I wish AI could take my low pay salary. Yeah, we should probably delegate all the low, underpaid, underappreciated tasks to AI so we can be all better paid and do creative, technical, well paid, well appreciated tasks. Cool. All right. Some interesting thoughts in the chat. So yeah, again, the point I'm making here is, AI tools are very accessible these days, and I think you should decide for yourself what you want AI to do for you and what you want AI not to do for you. Because if you as a teacher don't make those type of decisions, then somebody else will make those decisions for you, which could be maybe an edtech AI company that decides to automate certain tasks for teachers, and then you will be forced to use it. Or maybe the government makes those decisions about what you or you should or should not do. But I think we as teachers have a lot of autonomy and decision-making power to decide what we want AI to do and what we want AI not to do. All right, so let's get into the next practical levels. We finished the philosophical part. Now it's going to get really, really fun and practical. And we're going to talk about this concept of vibe teaching. I don't know how many of you have watched my previous webinar, Hacking ELT with AI, Teaching as Prototyping. Maybe comment if you have or haven't. I know that some people have, some people ping me that say, hey, I'm looking forward to this one, and I like the previous one. Yep. Okay. So yeah. So we have a mix of both. So that's a webinar was basically focused on a lot of hands-on activities of how to use AI for doing different cool things. So let me just give you a couple of examples. So first, I showed how you can use tools like Synthesia or HeyGen to generate AI video avatars, and you can basically type a text of maybe idioms or vocabulary or grammar points, and it generates a very realistic AI instructional video for you. We also learned how to use tools like Claude to create gamified quizzes. So instead of creating printable papers with quizzes to hand out to students, we showed how we can create custom digital activities and then use QR codes to for students to do them on your phone. I showed you how you can clone yourself and create your own teaching clone that you can basically ask it to maybe explain stuff or I don't know, create a video just by typing in text, and it generates a video of you that talks like you, looks like you, sounds like you, and that you can then share with students without needing to record yourself. And then we also looked at how to create different, let's say, grammar or idiom songs for your English classroom with AI tools, and you can choose different genre, different grammar points, and create like really awesome, cool songs, right? So that was level one, right? So I think if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to watch it. I think Thomas is going to paste the link to the webinar in the chat, so feel free to take a look. But where am I going with this is that in the rest of the session, we're going to take it to the next level. Before this, I'll also want to remind you of why we're doing this. Is because I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the UNESCO teacher competency framework, but according to this framework, they believe that teachers of the future will not just be mere consumers of content and tools and published materials, but teachers will need to become active creators both with AI and also creators of AI and tools, right? So I think it's a pretty good way to look at this from the point of view of teacher as creator to future-proof yourself. So let's get real. I don't know how many of you know this concept of vibe coding. I don't know, maybe if some of you are technical, maybe by raise of hands, like, have you guys heard of this concept of vibe coding? So vibe coding is basically, instead of engineers using traditional ways to create software, writing lines and lines and lines of code. Vibe coding is basically talking to an AI and asking it to generate software for you very easily, right? So you're just like, hey, create me a website about this, or create me a portfolio, or create me a web application. And then AI does all the coding for you, and you don't actually need to look at code or write any code. So why is this relevant for us? It's relevant for us because I believe in this concept of vibe teaching, right? And I would define vibe teaching as the art of talking to AI to generate educational AI tools. And you can see here, I generated a fakepedia, what I call it. It's a fake Wikipedia entry on vibe teaching to make myself famous. Obviously, this article doesn't actually exist in this fakepedia, but if it did, it would probably say something like this, right? So that vibe teaching is an AI-dependent educational technique where teacher intuitively creates custom educational tools and materials by speaking them into existence. So I think it's a good way to think about where AI is going, and I'm going to show you examples of vibe teaching being already possible today. Um, so let's take a look at a couple of examples. I call it going from lazy to crazy. So here's one example of an app that I created yesterday when I was preparing for this webinar last minute, and I went to Claude to create a custom uh, application that allows me to share it with students to practice present perfect tense with feedback, and that uses gamification, and that looks really nice, right? So here's a screenshot of a couple of these activities. And this activity took me maybe like 5 minutes to create, and it's digital and it's live. And if I was teaching in a classroom, I could easily share it with my students using a QR code. So if you don't believe me, maybe check out your phone, try to scan this QR code yourself, and try to go through a couple of questions on your own to see if it works, and maybe share your feedback about what you like, what you don't like, and whether you think this type of activity is a good replacement of printed materials, or maybe a good replacement of other digital gamified quiz activities that you create. So maybe let's take a moment, scan, this QR code is real, it should be working. So let me know in the chat if it worked for you, and what you think. Nice. Okay. It looks like we have a lot of great comments in the chat. So it looks like it's working. Very cool. Okay. So as far as tutorial, that webinar that I mentioned earlier on the previous slide, there is a tutorial, and I show exactly how I create activities like this. So if you want to watch the tutorial on how to do it, uh, check that out. It's on YouTube. Second, if we have some time left at the end, I will just go out of the presentation mode, and I'll show you live how quickly you can do it. And I'll try to basically rush through the rest of the slides to be able to do it, right? But my point is that it takes about 5 minutes to create a digital activity like this. And all you need to share is, let's say, hey, here's 10 idioms that we learned this lesson. Can you create a custom, beautiful web gamified activity that I can share for my students that looks beautiful on a mobile device? And the rest, Claude does all the coding and then generates this app. And then all you need to do is to share the link, or to generate a QR code and share it with your students. And bada bing, bada boom, you have a beautiful activity that you can create. So that's example number one. I'll show you something that is even cooler in a few minutes. So second example is I created another app. So this one I created for front of class tool. I remember on Fridays we would always do this like revision games, or different kind of games on Fridays to review like all the things that we learned during the week. And one of the things we did is, yeah, I would sometimes like divide the blackboard. Like I used the chalkboard in the classroom, was pretty low tech. I would like divide up the chalkboard into two halves, and I would have like different idioms or different words or different grammar points on each side. And then left side is team one, right side is team two, and then teams would compete either like making sentences with the grammar structure, and I would like cross it off, or they would have to use like an idiom in a sentence, and I would cross it off, and it would be timed, and then we basically see which team wins to like cross off all these sentences correctly, right? So yesterday I went to Claude, and I asked it to create a similar game on the web, and it basically generated this app that you see the screenshot of that allows students to kind of like click one of the options in the multiple choice test one by one, and then it automatically switches between team one, team two, team one, team two, and then you see which team accumulated most correct answers by the time the time expires. So it's pretty cool, right? So I think what I'm trying to say is this like concept of vibe teaching, right? Of basically speaking an activity or speaking an app into existence is real. It's possible. So in that webinar that I shared, I show you how to do it. You can do it today, and tomorrow you can bring some cool activities to your classroom. But let me show you something in action. But first, let's go back. Remember the concept of automating low-value tasks. So what I want to show you right now is actually, I think I revealed something. What I want to show you is, in my opinion, if I were teaching today, what kind of tasks I would completely automate. So here's a question for you, right? Maybe another chat exercise, right? If you had a magic wand, what one teaching related task would you pay $100 to automate? Like, is there a task that is so boring or tedious or hard for you that you would rather pay somebody to do for you and that you would never need to do again? Well, okay, grading. I see a lot of people saying grading. So, and that's exactly the answer for me. Taking attendance, grading, yeah, I think those are annoying. So I'm going to show you something really cool that is going to hopefully blow your mind. So yesterday, I took about 2 hours to, maybe three, if I'm honest, to generate this custom essay grader tool. So this tool is capable of grading an essay that I can upload either as a PDF or a document, and it automatically uses AI to provide feedback on the essay, give scores based on the rubric that I provide. It then annotates every single mistake and explains why it's a mistake, and then it writes a very personal message using the name of the student to say what they did well, and it creates a balanced feedback, um, balancing kind of like feedback on content and ideas, with feedback on form, layout, presentation, grammar, vocabulary, and so on. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to get out of the presentation mode, and I will share this tool in action if you don't believe me. So let me just share my screen. Okay. I hope you can guys see my screen now. So, and here's the tool that I was mentioning. So here's a very simple interface, right? All I need to do is to drop an essay, and I have a couple of examples of ungraded essays. And then here's the evaluation rubric that I created. So it basically evaluates the essay based on content organization, grammar, sentence structure, vocabulary and word choice, and then mechanics, right? So things like spelling, punctuation, and capitalization. So I'm going to click this button. So here are 3 essays. They're ungraded. I'm just going to select essay 1. It's now there, and I'm going to click grade essay. So now it's going to do the grading thing, and hopefully it works. Okay, so we have the total score, 25 out of 30. We have the breakdown for based on that rubric. We have the feedback that would be given to the student here, and we have annotated essay. Okay, but the most important thing is now we can download the graded document, and let's just save it. And I'm going to open it right here. Okay, actually, I'm going to stop sharing. Hold on. Okay. I hope you guys can see the essay here. So this is what AI just generated. So this is an annotated essay. So let me walk you through at what we are looking at here. So first, we have the essay with inline corrections where wrong things were crossed out and highlighted in red, and where corrections are presented in green, like here, right? So learning instead of become has become, right? And so on. So we see these inline corrections for the original essay. Then we have summary of all the corrections, right? So here's what was the error, here's what was the correction. Then we have the detailed score for content, organization, and so on, total score. And then we have this feedback, right? A qualitative feedback, like, hi, Yuko, you also did a great job, blah, blah, blah. Then it has, it evaluates it based on content first, and then it gives you some detailed specifications about the rest, and then ends up with some recommendations. So it's pretty cool. So maybe first question for you guys is, what do you think about this tool of automating grading papers? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's pretty good? Do you think it's pretty bad? Do you think you would want to create something similar? Okay, so very interesting feedback. Yeah, I see a lot of people kind of being worried. I see a lot of people saying this is amazing, this is exciting. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can easily build a very similar tool yourself, and where you have control over the rubric and the kind of layout and the specifications that you want to give to an AI tool. So let me just reshare. Okay, so we're in this window. We're gonna go. So yeah, actually, if you're curious about the tool I used to build it, is I used a coding AI coding tool, which is called Replit. And all I did in that tool is I basically told it using English language, say, hey, create an essay grading tool for me. I want to be able to upload a document. I want it to be analyzed by AI, and I want it to then give me a Word document with annotations and feedback and scores. And here is the rubric that I want AI to use for it. So I gave that prompt, and then it took me about like 2 hours to go back and forth and say, change this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. And then the ultimate result was that tool that you just saw. But here's a simpler way to do it, right? So I don't know how many of you guys used custom GPTs. So in ChatGPT, as you might know, you can create custom GPTs. So you see, like I have a bunch of custom GPTs here. And if you go to Explore GPTs, you have this option here to create. And when you click create, you can create a very similar functionality, right? So I'm just going to go back to, let's see, do I still have it here? So my GPTs. So this is the GPTs that I created. And so this is the essay evaluator that I created. And it works in the same way. So let me just show you how it works, right? So I can upload here a file from my computer. Let's take maybe essay2 this time. It now analyzes the essay. I will submit, and it should be able to do the same exact job for me and generate a Word document that I can download. Okay, so it basically now provided this text recommendation over here. It's still generating the rubric. It's the same exact rubric. Let's see what else it's doing here. Total, personalized overall feedback for Carlos. Great job. Okay, so it's generating this, and the summary of the corrections table. So you see, it's the exact same thing, just using off-the-shelf ChatGPT tool with custom GPT. And to be honest, I like the feedback of this custom GPT much better than the tool that I created with Replit. And you're gonna laugh because it took me about maybe 10 minutes to create this custom GPT essay grader. All I did is I just pasted the same exact prompt into a custom GPT creator, and it just immediately created this thing, and it just works, right? So what you see here now, it's writing some code. Of course, if you're technical, you can see like the kind of code it's writing, but you don't have to because it looks overwhelming. I'm not technical, so I never look at it. And then it will probably take another minute or two for it to generate a Word document. And that Word document is going to look very, very similar to the one that I showed you from the custom AI essay grading tool. So what I wanted to tell you is we, of course, in this webinar, don't have time to dive deep into the tutorial of how to create a custom GPT. But that webinar that I mentioned, there's also a section where I show how exactly to build a custom GPT. and you can just take a look at that video, and after that you will be able to create your own custom GPTs, and you can decide what you want AI to do for you. In that webinar, we created custom lesson generator, we created a curriculum generator that can create custom syllabus for you. In this case, you see an essay feedback generator, which is possible. So you see it's still working, because it's using very advanced reasoning models, which means it does a lot of like computation and thinking, but the ultimate result is very good. So here is the document that you can download, and it's basically the exact same functionality, but you don't need to be very technical to be able to create it, right? So very cool. So for the sake of time, I'm going to show you one last cool thing that I, oops, that does not look good. Maybe I won't. Maybe actually I'll just go back to the presentation and briefly mention the other part that I was going to show you. So, but I hope this gives you some ideas about what kind of things you can automate for yourself, right? So we took a look at essay grader. We then saw how you can upload an ungraded essay, and then it can generate a detailed document with annotations, feedback, and scores and recommendations. We then saw how you can replicate the same functionality using custom GPT, which takes, maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes. Maybe it's going to take you 30 minutes the first time you do it, but maybe 10, 15 after that. Then other thing I wanted to show you was this like really cool thing. I think we're running out of time, so I won't get to be able to show it to you. But what I essentially created is this cool app called Grammar Giggles. And what it does is it basically allows teacher to specify the grammar structure you want to teach. Then you select the GSC proficiency level based on the global scale of English. Then you type any topic that you want to teach. And then it generates 10 examples of that grammar in context. And when you go into presentation mode, it just basically presents like a fill in the blank activity. And you can use hints, or you can use AI explanation feature that if students ask like, oh, but why is this like that? Or why is it this word, not the other word? It can automatically generate grammar explanations. So as you can see, this looks way more polished. And it took me maybe like 4 hours to create it. But it works. And yeah, maybe in the next webinar we'll do a deep dive on how you can build a very similar app for yourself that is awesome, that is funny, that is based on the GSC, and that serves the purposes that you want. So I'm going to start wrapping up this session because we're actually on time. We made it till the end. The big idea that I wanted to communicate today is that you should try to focus on how you can automate low-value tedious tasks so that you make room for augmenting your high-value awesomeness as a teacher with some of the other cooler things like avatars and videos and songs and custom apps. So basically, see AI as both a way to liberate yourself from monotony and also as a tool to help yourself amplify your creativity and so on. So one final bonus section here, and we have some exciting news to share. I'm not going to reveal everything about the news because I would spoil it. But if you are planning or not planning to attend the Friday session, I highly recommend you join that one because it will be very much related to the topic of using AI for English teachers and the tools that Pearson will provide for it. So that's all I'm going to say. But if you have time, definitely sign up and attend that session on Friday with Jay and Nina, of my colleagues. So finally, I want to share that if you want to help us shape like the tools for learners and teachers, and you want to join our community, which we call Learner's Voice, scan the QR code, and Thomas is going to also add the link in the chat below. And yeah, so it'd be super useful if you sign up and you shared your feedback with us. And with that, I would like to thank you for attending this session. I hope you found that it was both inspiring, thought-provoking, and practical. If you want to have a more practical session, maybe tag me on LinkedIn or tag Pearson Languages on LinkedIn or other social media, or comment in the YouTube channel once this webinar goes live, and tell us what you would like to have more hands-on training on, and we can do another more technical hands-on prototyping session. If not, check out the previous webinar. It has a lot of tutorials for using different tools.